Hello, hello, and welcome along. Today's discussion is about some annoying things about being spirit led. And look, these things might no longer annoy you if you're well on your path and you've accepted that this is how it is and you understand that it works and it functions this way. But if you're earlier along on your path and, still discovering what it's all about and how to find your feet within being spirit led, these factors can actually be quite annoying on the way. And then if they don't annoy you, I bet there's a really good chance that some of these traits, factors, ways of being when you are spirit led might annoy the heck out of some people around you. And so it's important to have a bit of self-awareness on the path. It's important to be able to discuss these things and to be transparent with people when we might be behaving in particular ways that might just be annoying the heck out of those around us. And so having some tools to talk about what might be going on. If we don't want to talk about spiritual processes and I'm being led by spirit, and maybe you don't want to sound a bit woo, but you want some other language to talk about what is going on for you, then this might be helpful. And you know what, even though you are used to this way of being, these things can still get a bit frustrating at times. I know I get frustrated with myself with some of these things too, and I see it with those around me. So it's nice to just be aware of them and to walk as lightly as possible with a bit of humor about how we are. So let's dive on in to 3 annoying things about living a life that is spirit led. And this list is by no means exhaustive. Go ahead and pop your own features in there if this is something that you want to put in. And before I go into it, I should clarify too that, when I say annoying, like annoying to who, there's this kind of dichotomy taking place, right? There is the part of us that is being spirit led. There is the part of us that is on our path. Yes. And so that is in clear communication with whatever that prompting is that comes through. The annoyance comes in with that part of us, the human part of us, the piece of us that loves the predictability and the plan and the control over things, right? It comes with that more limited and limiting self that we have. That's the piece of us that can get annoyed and frustrated. And this is not necessarily something to beat ourselves up. Well, it's not something to beat ourselves up about, and it's certainly not something that we feel we should have to eradicate in order to be perfect in any way. It's more than enough to simply just acknowledge it. There's a part of me that is frustrated with this process that is being spirit led, right? And this is just speaking to the dynamic nature of who we are and what is possible through our being. Yeah. So with that said, the first thing I want to share 3 with you. The first annoying thing about being spirit led is that things don't always make sense. They just don't, right? Of course, we like logic, we like clear thinking, we like strategy and planning. Our minds are naturally hardwired to make sense of the world. We compartmentalize, we categorize, we organize. That's just how we're hardwired to do things, right? And so when we're going about our life and we've organized things in particular ways, and maybe we have plans, and maybe we have a direction, and this is what we're doing. We can have an aha, a prompting, something that calls us, or a pulling, right? This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about being spirit led, right? Something that is beyond our ordinary and beyond the everyday of how we're constructing things, that we know deep down, we know in our gut, we know intuitively, we know in our soul, we know in our body that that's a direction that we ought to explore, or we maybe should be open to, or maybe if you're quite used to this process, you simply know that that's the cue and it's time to go down that pathway. But what's annoying about it is that sometimes you can look at that and just go, really? Really? That is not what I thought I ought to be doing. That is not the plan. that doesn't fit in. How does that even fit in? Why would I be doing it at this point in time? And so that limited, organizing, constructing part of us is now looking at this prompting going, it doesn't make sense, right? What are you talking about? What on earth? Why would I want to go do that at this point in my life? Are you nuts, right? And of course, that spirit-led part of us is going to pull and pull, and it's like this, this magnetic energy, this irresistible energy to lead into. So as you get more and more used to this process, and you start to trust what it is to be spirit-led and to go with those decisions and to lean into those decisions because you know that they go somewhere marvelous, you know that the answer is yes. You know that you're going to lean into it. You know that that's the right thing to do, but it might not make sense. And so sitting with that tension in the knowing, okay, I don't have all the answers and I can't quite see the full picture and I can't quite make total sense of why this might be, that part of us, this is the muscle we need to build, is to try and keep that part of us, build the strength around there and the tolerance around there and the trust that eventually things are going to make sense. But it takes a whole heap of our being for this part of us, the limited, constructive self, to trust, right? Because it's not necessarily a built mechanism to trust. The spirit-led part of us is in total trust, right? Total trust, total surrender, total giving into all of it. But our protective mechanism is like, I don't know about that. And if you don't give me a good reason to do that, I don't know why I should be going down that road, right? So learning to navigate that voice that we have with the prompting that we have, and over time leaning more and more in, it becomes more natural to lean in and to simply go, you're right, doesn't make sense, but I know it will at some point in time, right? So eventually that can become a bit smoother. But boy, it can be annoying when it just doesn't make sense and you don't know why, and we want to know why, right? Second point, the second annoying thing that can be, the second annoying thing about being spirit-led, it requires endless patience. Endless patience, because of course, in spirit time, there is no time, right? It is eternal. In the transpersonal, in the great beyond, in great creation, in source, in, whatever you want to call that, in the infinite creative universe and cosmos that we are a part of, spirit time has no timeline. Yep. And that's why amazing things can happen, like future traveling and past traveling and revisiting past lives, or living different timelines simultaneously, right? All kinds of weird and wonderful. Time can totally slow down, right? All kinds of things can happen through spiritual experiences that aren't normally accessible to us in the daily living 5 sense world, material world, right? And so because spirit has no timeline, spirit has no, time-bound agenda in that way, there's just the prompt for something to happen. And so sometimes when we want the direction, when we want something to happen, again, that constructive part of us that likes the plan, that likes the timetable, that likes, to set the dates, etc., let me plan my life out, needs to learn a bit of patience, because the answers aren't always readily available. The guidance is not always readily available. Maybe over time you have refined your skills, you've fine-tuned, and so you have your ability to get answers, from the great sources, from the great creation, however it is that you connect, right? Some people talk about spirit guides, right? Whatever your thing is. So yes, there are those answers that can come, but sometimes the answer is not given, particularly in big things. Often, sometimes we are not to know. When we ask, we're not given this immediate answer. And that is so incredibly frustrating to the limited part of us that is like, time is ticking, my earth time is ticking, and I want an answer now so that I can get on with organizing my life, right? And that just isn't how it works in spirit time, because when the time is right to give the prompting or share the information, then it will come, right? And all that we can do on earth time is to prepare the conditions, to be open to receive whatever guidance or answers, to genuinely, authentically ask from that most desiring space within us for whatever guidance that we need. But it's not something that we can force. And so we learn patience in that. And then the third annoying thing about being spirit led is that plans change when we finally get the plan. Things aren't making sense, or maybe they're starting to make a bit more sense, and we've been endlessly patient, but things are starting to get momentum now, and we get things going and things are moving along, and we've said yes to our spirit promptings and off we go. Now we've started to take steps, we've started to take action, and what? Plans change? Something shifts along the way yet again, and sometimes it can happen as fast as that, in a moment, just as fast as that. Boy, isn't that annoying, right? You think that you finally got it and that's the direction and that's where you have to head down, and then boom, just like that, the guidance comes, the knowing comes, the deep intuitive piece, or maybe it's a resistance now to that path, or something just isn't going right anymore, and you're getting the cues that it's time to change plans. It's incredibly annoying. I think you let me know if you find that that's an annoying feature for you. And about that changing plans is that what I've discovered over the time with my own experiences with this and with working with this with other people is it seems to work this way. Sometimes, in order to convince us to get to a certain point so that we can be more open or in a different space to go down a more correct path that is for us, or a more aligned path. Sometimes, in order to get us to point B so that we can get to point C, at point A at the very beginning, something compelling had to happen so that we could say yes in the first place, right? Yes, I'm committed. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to jump in wholeheartedly. And so we say yes, and we think we're sailing down that path of plan A. But really, what the greater wisdom, sometimes very twisted humor, wisdom of the cosmos had in mind is that in order to really get you down this road, you had to say yes at this first junction so that you could get here, because otherwise you never would have got to point B to get you into point C. Let me know if that resonates with you. I would love to hear about it, and any other annoying pieces that you have found along the way of being spirit-led, where that part of us that wants to plan and know and construct and organize the world just gets really annoyed and frustrated with this process of the grander, it's okay, everything's perfect, everything's fine, this is how we're traveling, this is where we're going, and you'll know when the time is right. Let me know. Much love. Be well.